Nobody expected this outcome. For months, rumors, speculation, and nonstop online discussion surrounded the Duggar family once again. But this time, the spotlight landed directly on Joseph Duggar. And now, after a surprising legal development that caught even longtime followers completely off guard, Joseph may have just scored one of the biggest victories the family has seen in years. Court filings, fan reactions, social media theories, quiet whispers from insiders. Suddenly, Joseph Duggar is back in the headlines in a way nobody predicted. And the more details that emerge, the more complicated this story becomes. So what exactly happened behind courtroom doors? Why are fans calling this such a huge win? And could this outcome completely change the direction of Joseph's future moving forward? Today, we're diving deep into the full story behind Joseph Duggar's unexpected court victory. What allegedly led up to the legal battle? What sources close to the situation are reportedly saying? How the Duggar family may be reacting privately? And why the internet cannot stop talking about it right now? Because according to many followers, this situation may reveal far more about the Duggar family than anyone originally realized. And if you think this is just another small legal update involving reality TV personalities, think again. What makes this case especially shocking is that many people online had already assumed Joseph would quietly stay out of public controversy forever. Unlike some other members of the Duggar family, Joseph has largely maintained a lower profile over the years, rarely making explosive headlines, rarely giving major interviews, and often appearing to stay focused on family life away from the spotlight. But now, that image has suddenly changed. Fans began noticing subtle signs that something unusual was happening weeks before the court outcome became public. Online forums started buzzing with theories. Duggar watchers dissected public records. Social media pages exploded with speculation. Some believed Joseph was dealing with a private dispute behind the scenes. Others thought the situation could become a much bigger problem for the family. Then came the courtroom decision. And almost overnight, reactions flooded the internet. Some supporters are calling it a complete vindication for Joseph Duggar. Others say the outcome raises even more unanswered questions. And critics of the Duggar family are now debating whether this legal win could actually shift public perception in a major way. But before we get into the details of the ruling itself, we first need to understand how this entire situation allegedly began. Because the timeline leading up to this moment is far more dramatic than most people realize. For years, many followers of the Duggar family viewed Joseph Duggar as one of the most low-profile members of the famous reality TV family. Unlike some of his siblings who frequently found themselves pulled into headlines, interviews, controversies, or public debates, Joseph largely kept his personal life out of the spotlight. After marrying Kendra Duggar, the couple appeared focused on building a quieter lifestyle centered around parenting, faith, and staying close to family. Their public appearances became less frequent, and compared to other Duggar relatives, Joseph rarely became the center of major online discussions. That's part of the reason this court-related story immediately grabbed attention. The moment reports about the legal proceedings began circulating online, longtime Duggar followers flooded social media, trying to understand exactly what had happened. Some people were confused by the early rumors. Others assumed the situation would somehow connect back to the broader controversies that have surrounded the family for years. But according to multiple discussions surrounding the case, the situation appeared very different from what many initially expected. Instead of Joseph facing a damaging setback, many viewers were shocked to learn that the outcome reportedly worked in his favor, something that almost nobody predicted when the first rumors started spreading online. And almost immediately, reactions split into two very different camps. Supporters of the family began calling the ruling a huge win for Joseph personally, arguing that he had unfairly become associated with controversies connected to the Duggar name over the years despite maintaining a relatively quiet public image himself. Meanwhile, critics argued that regardless of the outcome, any court-related development tied to the Duggar family would inevitably reignite public scrutiny surrounding their history, media presence, and past scandals. That tension is exactly why this story has continued gaining traction online. Because for some viewers, this isn't just about one legal ruling. It's about whether certain Duggar family members are now trying to reshape their public image after years of negative headlines, and whether fans are finally becoming more willing to separate individual family members from the controversies surrounding the larger Duggar brand. And the deeper people looked into the details of the case, the more complicated the conversation became. For years, Joseph Duggar occupied a very different place within the Duggar family's public image. While several of his siblings became heavily associated with controversy, scandals, media interviews, and non-stop online discussion, Joseph quietly stayed in the background. And oddly enough, that silence became part of what made him stand out. Among longtime followers of the Duggar family, Joseph developed a reputation for being one of the more reserved and low-key siblings. He rarely appeared to seek attention for himself. He generally avoided heated public debates, stayed away from political commentary, and didn't cultivate the kind of social media presence that often fuels internet drama. Instead, much of his public identity became tied to family life. After marrying Kendra Duggar, the couple projected an image centered around parenting, home life, faith, and traditional family routines. Compared to some of the larger personalities within the Duggar orbit, Joseph and Kendra often appeared almost intentionally private. That difference mattered to fans. Over time, many viewers began separating Joseph from some of the more controversial narratives attached to the broader Duggar name. Whether fair or not, audiences often viewed him as less confrontational, less publicly ambitious, and less involved in the family's most explosive headlines. But the Duggar family carries an enormous amount of public history, and that history creates an unusual situation where even the smallest rumor can instantly become major online news. So when court-related discussions suddenly started circulating online alongside Joseph Duggar's name, fans immediately became suspicious. The reaction was fast. Social media users began trying to piece together scattered information. Online discussions multiplied across forums and fan pages, and speculation spread almost overnight. Some people feared another damaging Duggar scandal was about to unfold. Others wondered if the situation involved business dealings, property disputes, contracts, or financial complications. And because the Duggar family has spent years under public scrutiny, audiences were already conditioned to expect dramatic developments whenever legal language entered the conversation. That's what made this moment feel so different. Joseph Duggar was never considered one of the family's headline makers. He wasn't usually the sibling dominating entertainment blogs or trending online for controversy. In many ways, his lower profile had protected him from the level of intense attention faced by others in the family, which is exactly why the sudden emergence of court rumors felt so shocking to longtime followers. The mystery surrounding the situation only intensified public curiosity. With very little confirmed information available at first, online speculation filled the gap. Every new rumor, every vague social media comment, and every mention of legal proceedings added fuel to the growing discussion. And almost overnight, Joseph Duggar became the latest Duggar family member pulled directly into the center of a major public conversation. For someone known primarily for staying quiet, the sudden spotlight felt completely unexpected. And that unexpected attention is what made fans start watching the situation even more closely. As more details surrounding the case began surfacing, many followers realized the situation was more complicated than early rumors initially suggested. One major reason the story spread so quickly online was because information appeared fragmented at first. Different blogs, social media accounts, and fan communities all seemed to interpret the legal developments differently, creating confusion about what the case actually involved. That uncertainty only fueled additional speculation. Some online commenters immediately jumped to worst-case assumptions due to the Duggar family's past controversies. Others urged caution, reminding people that court proceedings can often sound far more dramatic than they truly are when viewed outside proper legal context. Eventually, however, enough details reportedly emerged for observers to understand why supporters viewed the outcome as such a significant win for Joseph Duggar. The ruling itself appeared to favor Joseph in a way many people genuinely did not expect. And once news of that outcome started circulating online, reactions intensified dramatically. Fans began celebrating what they viewed as vindication, while critics questioned whether the public was receiving the full story behind the legal situation. Meanwhile, YouTube channels, Reddit discussions, and Duggar-focused fan communities quickly turned the court decision into one of the most talked-about Duggar developments in recent months. Legal background. According to reports circulating online, the legal matter reportedly centered around a dispute that had gradually escalated behind the scenes before finally reaching formal court proceedings. At first, very little verified information was publicly available. That lack of clarity created the perfect environment for rumors to spread. Some people assumed the case involved major criminal allegations. Others believed it was tied to financial disagreements, business arrangements, or private family-related conflicts. In reality, many observers later realized the publicly available court filings painted a more nuanced picture than the internet initially suggested. Several legal commentators online pointed out that court paperwork can often appear intimidating to people unfamiliar with legal terminology. Standard procedural motions, filings, and hearings were sometimes interpreted online as evidence of something far more explosive. And because the Duggar family already carries years of public controversy attached to its name, many people immediately expected another major scandal before all the facts had fully emerged. That assumption dramatically amplified public interest. Timeline of events. As internet sleuths began piecing together the timeline, attention quickly focused on how rapidly the situation appeared to evolve. Reports suggested that the earliest signs of legal trouble may have surfaced quietly through public records long before most fans noticed anything unusual. Initially, only a small number of Duggar watchers were discussing the filings online. But once screenshots and summaries began circulating across social media platforms, the story suddenly exploded into mainstream Duggar discourse. Fans started creating breakdown videos. Reddit users analyzed court documents line by line. TikTok creators posted rapid-fire updates attempting to explain what was happening. And before long, speculation began spreading faster than confirmed information itself. Part of the confusion came from the fact that legal cases often involve multiple stages that can easily be misunderstood by the public. Preliminary filings, procedural hearings, and administrative rulings were all interpreted differently depending on who was reporting the story. That made it increasingly difficult for casual followers to separate facts from assumptions. Still, one thing became obvious very quickly: people were paying attention. Reported claims and disputes. As additional details reportedly emerged, discussions began centering around the specific claims involved in the dispute. Different outlets framed the situation differently, which only added to the confusion. Some reports focused heavily on the allegations themselves. Others focused more on Joseph's legal response and the court's eventual ruling. Observers noticed that online discussions often exaggerated incomplete information before official updates became available. In several cases, theories circulating on social media appeared far more dramatic than what public records actually reflected. That disconnect became a major talking point among Duggar followers. Supporters of Joseph argued that many critics rushed to judgment far too quickly simply because of the family name attached to the case. Critics, however, insisted that public skepticism toward the Duggar family did not appear out of nowhere given the family's long history of scandals and media scrutiny. As both sides debated online, the case transformed from a simple legal proceeding into a much larger conversation about reputation, public perception, and internet speculation. And throughout it all, Joseph himself remained relatively quiet publicly, something many supporters claimed actually strengthened his image during the controversy. Social media reactions and online theories narration. The online reaction quickly became a spectacle of its own. Within hours of major updates surfacing, social media platforms were flooded with reactions from both supporters and critics. Some viewers described the ruling as a massive personal victory for Joseph. Others questioned whether the public truly understood all the legal details involved. On Reddit especially, Duggar-focused communities became intensely active. Users debated timelines, analyzed court terminology, and compared various media reports attempting to determine exactly what had happened behind the scenes. YouTube creators also fueled the momentum. Headline after headline framed the situation as either a shocking court win or another example of Duggar-related controversy, depending on the channel's perspective. That constant stream of dramatic coverage kept the story trending far longer than many people expected. At the same time, some observers began warning that internet discussions surrounding legal cases can become dangerously misleading when speculation overtakes confirmed information. Several commenters encouraged people to rely on verified court records rather than viral social media summaries. But by that point, the story had already developed a life of its own online. And regardless of where people stood on the situation, one reality became impossible to ignore. Joseph Duggar had unexpectedly become the center of one of the biggest Duggar discussions in recent memory. What shocked many followers most about this situation wasn't just the court ruling itself. It was how completely it disrupted the expectations surrounding the Duggar family name. For weeks, online discussions had been filled with speculation, assumptions, and predictions that this situation would end badly for Joseph Duggar. On social media, many critics seemed convinced that any legal headline connected to the Duggars would automatically spiral into another major controversy. That expectation alone is a huge reason why the outcome generated so much attention. Because over the past several years, the Duggar family has become closely associated with scandal, investigations, and damaging public headlines. Many observers believed this story would simply become another chapter in that ongoing narrative. Instead, the reported ruling appeared to interrupt that pattern entirely. And for longtime Duggar followers, that surprise factor made the story explode online almost immediately. Some supporters described the decision as one of the first genuinely positive headlines tied to the family in a very long time. Others framed it as a rare moment where a Duggar family member appeared to emerge from public scrutiny without devastating fallout. That perception alone dramatically changed the tone of online conversations. Another major reason people are calling this a big win involves reputation management, something that has become incredibly important for anyone connected to the Duggar name. Joseph Duggar has often maintained a quieter public image compared to several of his siblings. He and Kendra largely focused on family life, staying relatively removed from major public disputes and media controversies. Because of that, some supporters felt Joseph unfairly carried negative assumptions simply due to association with the broader Duggar brand. So when this ruling reportedly favored him, many fans interpreted it as validation. Online comments quickly shifted from skepticism to relief. Supporters began arguing that Joseph should not automatically be grouped into every controversy connected to the family's past. Some even claimed this moment could help reshape how portions of the public view him moving forward. And from a public relations standpoint, that kind of perception shift can be incredibly significant. In today's internet culture, reputation often moves faster than facts. Once public narratives form online, they can become extremely difficult to reverse. That's why even a single favorable legal development can dramatically influence public conversation, especially for someone already living under intense scrutiny. For Joseph and Kendra, supporters believe the emotional impact of that shift could be enormous. For years, nearly every Duggar-related headline has triggered waves of criticism, speculation, and viral debate. Even family members who avoid controversy frequently find themselves pulled into online discussions simply because of their last name. That level of constant public attention can create enormous pressure behind the scenes. And according to many fans, this ruling may have provided Joseph and Kendra with something they haven't experienced publicly in quite some time: relief. Supporters flooded comment sections describing the outcome as encouraging, uplifting, and even emotionally vindicating. Some viewers argued the decision offered Joseph an opportunity to distance himself from some of the broader negativity that has followed the Duggar family for years. Others pointed to the importance of stability, because regardless of public opinion, legal disputes can place major emotional strain on families, especially when internet speculation grows out of control. Fans sympathetic to Joseph and Kendra argued that resolving the situation favorably could allow them to move forward privately without the same level of uncertainty hanging over them. But despite the wave of support, not everyone is convinced this changes the bigger picture. Critics online remain deeply skeptical that public perception surrounding the Duggar family can truly recover long-term. Some commentators argue that the controversies tied to the family over the years are simply too significant for one court ruling to erase. Others believe the public will continue viewing any Duggar-related headline through the lens of past scandals, regardless of individual circumstances. And honestly, that skepticism continues fueling debate online even now. Still, regardless of where people stand personally, one thing became impossible to ignore after the ruling surfaced. The conversation surrounding Joseph Duggar changed almost overnight. Instead of headlines focused entirely on controversy, many discussions suddenly centered around surprise, relief, and the possibility that Joseph's public image may be evolving in a different direction than many people expected. Whether that shift lasts long-term remains unclear. But for now, supporters are calling this outcome a major win, not only legally, but personally, emotionally, and publicly as well. Whether this court victory ultimately becomes a turning point for Joseph Duggar or simply another temporary headline in the long history of public scrutiny surrounding the Duggar family remains to be seen. But one thing is absolutely clear. Very few people expected this outcome. The ruling has already reshaped online conversations surrounding Joseph, generated intense speculation across social media, and reignited broader discussions about how individual members of the Duggar family are perceived today. For supporters, it signals vindication and a rare moment of positive momentum. For critics, it raises new questions and ongoing skepticism. But regardless of perspective, the story has undeniably captured widespread attention across the internet. And as is often the case with the Duggar family, audiences are likely to keep watching closely to see what develops next. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.